So, tell me a little bit about your latest project. It sounds like you have a lot of fun things going on.
Um, well, thank you for asking, and thank you for having me.
Of course.
So the film that I that came out on Tuesday, for people who have cable, is a film that I co-wrote, produced, and am in, and it's a film called Life After You, based on a book by Linda Latterman, who's actually from Jersey, Ramsey, New Jersey. Her son, Danny Latterman, died of a drug overdose. It was a batch of heroin that was laced with fentanyl, in February of 2014. And I mean, she was just at a loss at what to do. And about a month after they found him, her husband, Tito, and her found him in the family house he had been using in his bedroom. And they knocked down the door and they found him in there. And about a month after he died, she wrote a viral. She wrote a Facebook post that went viral. So she ended up expanding on that post and writing a little, like, a novel, basically called Life After You: What Your Death from Drugs Leaves Behind. And it was, chronicling what had happened to each member of the family, um, formatted in a way that was like, hey, kids, there are drugs out there on the street that can kill you. And if you choose to experiment, this is what's going to happen to the family that you leave behind. Um, Charlene Giannetti, is a journalist, and she had interviewed Linda for, when the book was published, and she knew my work as an actress. So Charlene contacted me and said, let's make a film of this book, adapt the book. She had never made a film before, neither had I, but we ended up making a film.
Wow. And what is your role in the film exactly?
I play Linda. I play the mother. Um, and after talking to Linda, because obviously I talked to her extensively, I asked Charlene, I said, can you give me a shot at writing this? Because I wanted to tell her story in a way that really entered her emotional reality. Because when she talked to me, she told me that she still spoke to her son, and that you know, and our film is really about that process of grieving and Linda's struggle to accept this this event that really threw her for a loop, to put it lightly. She had no idea that her son was using uh, hard drugs. She knew he had been smoking weed. She knew that he was at a community college, and I think he was working at nights, and she knew that he was a bit lost in terms of what he wanted to do with his life. But he seemed happy. They talked all the time. They talked about drug use. Like, she considered him to be her best friend. So she was so completely blindsided when she discovered him dead and discovered that he had been using heroin, which she knew nothing about. We're guessing that he hadn't been a user for long, but the thing about it now, the thing about experimental drug use now, is that there are such things as fentanyl out there, which are so much stronger than any kind of hard drug, and that can kill you if if you get a batch that has too much of it, which is quite common. So she felt the need to like sound the alarm bell, and Charlene also felt the need to sound that alarm bell and to get Linda's message out to a greater amount of people, which is why we ended up writing a film about it.
That's incredible. My heart breaks for her. I can't even imagine going through that kind of pain. And what would you say was the biggest challenge about playing Linda, especially since she is a real life person and not a character?
Me, you said it right there. That was the biggest challenge, was like, oh my goodness, the responsibility of honoring her son's memory, of telling the story truthfully, not making it, a sort of, a story about how, Linda is this, savior, perfect. No, she's a human being. Everyone in her family, including her son, have faults. We're all human. But in this movie, in the telling of this tale, what we're trying to show is the grief and the damage that you leave behind when you choose to experiment with drugs and risk dying. So it was really hard to figure out how to tell the story in a way that asked all the questions that are hard to ask, and that have very few answers. Questions like, what, how does a family live through this? How do we as a society stop this from happening? Again, the film doesn't answer these questions, but it really poses them as honestly as we could. And we wanted, we wanted Linda and her family to feel like we got it right. And after many, many drafts and lots of lots of mistakes, honestly, like there was the process of writing this film and making the film and editing the film was one in which we eventually learned, like, we have to be willing to get it wrong in order to get it right.
And what is one thing you hope people take away from watching this movie?
So one thing that, probably the most important thing I learned during the making of this film, is that um, the opposite of addiction is connection. And so I hope that when people watch this film, they feel less alone. They know that they are not alone. Unfortunately, the story we tell is a story that is so common. Um, uh, I hope people find solace and connection and community when they watch the film and see this story, which could unfortunately be their story. Um, the pandemic was really hard because so many of us were isolated, and it was really hard on addicts, because they lost their support system of being able to come together, come into a room, and tell their story, and hear other people's story, and see themselves and hear themselves in other people's story. Also, shame breeds in isolation. When we are disconnected from each other and feel alone, it's a lot easier to feel bad about oneself, to be overtaken by the demons of, I'm a horrible person, I'm a useless person, which is part of the human condition. Like, we all, no matter who we are, if we're human, struggle with self doubt. And so I hope that people feel embraced by community and by the knowledge that they're not alone when they watch this film.
And I know you played Linda and you talked to her quite a bit, but did you talk to maybe her other family members or her son's friends, and were they a part of the movie as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So Sarah T. Schwab, who directed this film and who co wrote the screenplay with me. And this is really Sarah's vision. I mean, she did such an amazing job of not falling into melodrama with this story, which would have been really easy to do. Um, uh, Giving room for the audience to project their own grief onto it. So less is more in her aesthetic, and I think she really did a beautiful job of telling the story with a controlled um, uh, vibe. But yes, so the both of us talked to Linda, obviously Tito, her husband. I talked to Danny's girlfriend, Colleen. We talked to the police chief, who was very involved in this case, the police chief of Ramsey. Um, we we didn't talk directly to Danny's friends, but we got a lot of Linda talked to them, and we got a lot of their quotes. There's actually a scene in which Linda and Tito ask Danny's friends to come over because they're really investigating. Part of the story is really like a thriller in terms of how could this have happened? Who knew? How did we not know? How could we not have known? Why did nobody tell us? And it's an investigation into, the gap between young adults, children, and adult and full blown adults, and how there's this code among kids, you know, and how to penetrate that code, because it really is a matter of life and death when these things are involved. How do we get kids to trust us, and how do we really show up for kids so that they can trust us?
Exactly. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine what his family went through. It just breaks my heart.
Oh God, yeah.
Yes. And what's next for you? Do you have any other projects on the docket now that this has been released?
I do. I shot a Netflix series in Vancouver last summer, and it's called Breathing. Keep Breathing, and it's a really cool. It's an anthology series, so um, season one is the story unto itself, and they are survival stories. So the first season concerns a woman who crashes in the Canadian wilderness. And it's actually, I think it's a stand in for Alaska, but that part of the world. And she crashes and survives, is the only, well, I shouldn't say that. She's a survivor in a small helicopter. And in order to find the will to go on and the strength to endure all that she has to endure, um, she has to confront the demons of her past. So she keeps flashing back to her childhood, and that's the story that Keep Breathing is about.
It's incredible. I can't wait to see it. It sounds like an incredible series. I'm really excited about that one.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. I mean, it's very risk taking too. It dares to watch a woman simply survive, like build a fire. Like, how do you build a fire when you uh, have, you're a city girl, and uh, the cinematography is beautiful, the landscape is beautiful. There are some really great actors in it, so I think it's sort of one of a kind. Yeah.
Nice. And one thing I like asking people I interview is tell me a fun fact about yourself.
Fun fact about myself. Hmm. Well, there's what do I tell? You know what I love performance art. I love everything people were doing in the 70s and the 60s, like, getting nude and painting themselves, or like, you know, uh, Marina Abramovich, the Living Theater, people who were staging theatrical events, not necessarily in theater spaces, but really theater as a sort of laboratory for human behavior, which is not a tradition that the US has as much as other cultures. For example, if you go to Europe and stuff, you'll see theater that's much more, you'll stumble upon it on the street. People wearing masks, people with puppets, people staging all night sort of happenings. But I am really drawn to that kind of storytelling, which has a sort of anarchic, rebellious, uh, experimental vibe to it. And I've staged some stuff just by myself, and with my friends, and that's been some of the most exciting stuff, because there's no roadmap for that. It's not like a play where you get a script and you're contracted by a theater company and you're within the confines of their theater. It's like anything is possible. And I love making stuff where you really make your own rules. Um, yeah, so guerrilla type of theater, I love that stuff.
And since we're also a TV site, what are you watching these days?
God, there's so much to watch. Um, I, gosh, um, I love, I think, the series I have been watching, Fresh Off the Boat.
That's a
I don't
good
know.
one. Yeah.
I really like that. Been watching some of Atlanta. Have you ever seen that?
I have not, but I heard good things.
Yeah. Oh, what was that great HBO series? The British woman, black woman, um, who had been attacked sexually, and then she was piecing together what had happened to her.
Oh, I know the one you're talking about.
I can't believe I can't remember the
I can't
name.
remember the name of it either, but I know the one you're talking about.
Uh, oh God, that series was amazing. Um, I mean, I loved Schitt's Creek. Oh, I love Schitt's Creek. I love comedy too. Uh, Especially these days, it seems to be really necessary. Um, what are you watching?
I just restarted Only Murders in the Building. I love that one. I can't wait for season two to begin in June because they ended it on such a cliffhanger that I just can't wait to find out what happens. And I just love Martin Short and Steve Martin, so it's just an
Yes.
incredible show. Have you seen that one yet?
I haven't. I think I read it. I'm pretty sure I read it. Um, but I want to see that. Yeah, also want to see The Dropout. I've heard Amanda Seyfried is so good in that.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good one.
You've seen it?
Yeah, I saw the first few episodes. I finished watching it, but I won't ruin it for you, but it's really good.
Yeah, I want to see that for sure. Um, I saw a little bit of NBC's or ABC's The Promised Land, because I
Okay.
had friends on that, a lot of friends, John Ortiz and Yul Vasquez and um,
Yeah, lots of good ones.
yeah,
So
yeah.
many good shows. And
Oh,
what were you saying?
so many good shows. I want to see the Bill Cosby show, the Bill Cosby documentary
Yes, yes.
by, I forget who did it now, but I hear that's really, really good. I'm dying to see that. Um, the Lakers show kind of sounds interesting.
Yes, yes, yes. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I haven't watched that one yet, but I heard good things.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, so much good TV, not enough time to watch it.
God, I know. I know, and I know when I get off the phone with you or this call, there's so many shows will come to mind. And the name of that HBO show that I'm trying to remember.
Yes, of course. That's always the way it works.
I know.
Yeah, it's crazy. But where can we find you on social media so we can continue to follow you and all the amazing things you're doing?
So I have an Instagram account, which is my name with an underscore between my first and last names, and it's all lowercase. So it's Florencia, all lowercase, underscore Lozano, all lowercase.
Perfect. I'll make sure to send you a follow. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate you, and I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.
Thank you so much, hon.
Yep, thank you. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.